Leave no doubt. That is the new buzzword for Ohio State coach Ryan Day. Buzzwords?
Buzzwords.
That's what they're here for, to fact check me live on Snap Judgments that are brought to you by Byers Auto. That's Bill Landis, Jeremy Birmingham. I'm Austin Ward. And Ryan Day said that about 10 times in a row. What's the ability to get over these one or two plays or one drives that have hurt them? It's by just winning games by 5 plays, 6 drives, whatever. Just blowing them out and leaving no doubt. That's what I learned on day one at Big Ten Media Days about Ohio State. There's a lot more that we can get into.
Yeah.
But this team has high expectations, and saying stuff like that does very little to downplay it.
Not that I want everything about college football to devolve into gambling talk, but basically he said, like, take the over because we're going to put the pedal down and keep the pedal down is what he said, which is like it's what you want to hear, right? Like we were curious about how they would receive questions about the expectations, and I thought Ryan Day did a nice job throughout the day of balancing the we know they're there, we're not running away from them, but it's not our main focus right now. With also like we're Ohio State, like we are going to approach this season like that championship is ours to go out and take. So like I don't know if I were an Ohio State fan, like wondering how Ohio State would present itself here. Like I thought Ryan did a nice job with that.
I like it. Seemed like he realizes or was saying, and sometimes directly, sometimes indirectly, like they owe it to the guys that are returning to this program to not hold anything back this year. And that is really encouraging. I also think it's smart. Like the simple reality is, you can do all the coach speak stuff you want. You can have all the guys be as bland as possible to, we're not paying attention to the outside. That's stupid. You know it exists. You don't have to pretend it doesn't. Now, you can avoid letting that dictate everything you do, and you can avoid having that put too much added pressure on you by being realistic about it. And that's what Emeka Egbuka said, Jack Sawyer said, Denzel Burke said. Like, we are Ohio State. Like, this comes with the territory. It's not different this year than it was in the last 3 years. I mean, yeah, the last 3 years ended poorly, but the expectation when the year started was still win a national championship or you stink.
Yeah, I mean, primarily from the outside, though, because I think the difference to me, and maybe you can disagree, is that Ryan Day would take some of those questions and make, you guys are college football playoff contenders. You have an opportunity to win it all. And he would say, well, we do want to win every game, but our goals are to win against the team up north, win the Big Ten, and then whatever happens from there in a college football playoff, give it our best shot to win a national championship. And that's still, to some extent, what he's saying. But I do feel like there's a more willingness, maybe that's driven more by Emeka Egbuka, Jack Sawyer, Denzel Burke on Tuesday than Ryan Day, but to like skip past that. It's like, of course they want to do those first two things, but unless they start embracing the one at the very top, I think that's maybe where some of the slippage has occurred. You can disagree with that or not. I don't know, but
yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think that there's probably some truth to that, but I also think that if you are not paying attention to the first one, it's much more likely that you're not going to hit the third one, because we are all humans, and human nature is to pay attention to what you're paying attention to. And if you're not focused on beating Michigan first, then the national championship, generally speaking, falls away from your grasp.
I don't know that I might disagree with you on that, because the rivalry is critically important and there's a countdown in the Woody for a reason. But if your primary goal is to win a national title, I would think that would make every week more important. And if there has been something that we've talked about from the last couple of years where it has felt like Ryan Day has got out of character, it has been an obsession with Michigan solely, in my opinion. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong.
But I do think this is the time, and we've talked about this for the last year plus, like as college football changes, priorities are going to have to shift a little bit, because beating Michigan on November 30th is well and good, but if Michigan beats you on January 7th, then who cares?
Yeah.
So, I mean, there is going to be this readjustment and realignment, and I think that's why it's so important, Bill, for Ohio State to focus on saying, we know why these guys returned. It's not because they just, they love Ohio State, but it's not because they feel so good about, we can't wait. We could never think about leaving. It's like, didn't accomplish goals. That's why they returned. And every one of those guys embraced that today. And it's not, I think you have to do that.
I do think there is like a shift in mindset that I think we all kind of sense, but it is a little hard to define why. And I think if you asked 25 guys on a team why, you might get 19 different answers, right? And that's okay. I think what matters is that
Who are the 6 sheep?
we'll find out. We'll root them out. I think what matters is sort of like the mindset now, if that makes sense. Which is what, to me, like I thought maybe the most important thing Ryan Day said today, and he was asked sort of generally just about the off season, and I can't remember exactly what the question was, but his answer was something to the effect of like, we know what is expected of us. So when you know that, there is a certain expectation this time of year of like what your work ethic should look like, and it's looked like how you want it to look. So like, I don't think you can ask for anything more than that. Like the games will come and we'll preview them and break them down and try to determine which one carries more weight than the other. Like I don't even know if that's even worth getting into it now. I think what's most important for Ohio State is that they are of the proper mindset approaching a season when everyone expects the world of them, and it seems like they are.
The hard part for me is like, because we have been here with Ryan Day now for 6 years in this role, the coach speak stuff, which, we talked about this morning and you'll see it on the Daily tomorrow, like that happens because generally speaking, cliches are true.
Yeah.
So
unfortunately,
that is generally, it feels like it's an aversion tactic, but it's not. It's really just leaning into it. I feel like I believe Ryan Day more right now than when he says this summer's been really good. This summer's been like, I don't know why. Maybe it's because we got to spend a little bit more time one-on-one with players this summer doing the Buck 9 and that sort of stuff, that you can have that affirmed from those kids. Like they're all saying this has felt different, but I believe it. And I agree. Like the mindset just seems right.
Yeah.
And again, if I'm reading it wrong, so be it. But I think when you have Denzel, Emeka, and Jack Sawyer talking about national championship or bust, then that like most likely includes a win and gold pants along the way, where I think the opposite approach has been taken from the last 3 years, which is like win the game and like you're going to be a national title contender. Like I think flipping that is probably better off. And there's no way that any one of us can be proved right about that right
whatever
now.
gets you there, right? It's like,
Yeah.
I think it's fine if that's the case.
Denzel Burke said that one of the things he's been doing is he might be an a-hole to his teammates.
He did say that.
In order to push people where they need to be. He said, I'm not having any BS. Like if the young guys aren't doing the job, if coaches aren't doing the job, I'm going to call them out too. Like I just feel like that's totally different.
I love him so much. He's great.
Yeah, he's awesome. And that conversation that Berm and I had with him will be on the podcast daily for Wednesday morning. We've got all 3 players for the Buckeyes in Ryan Day that joined us in Indianapolis, which is great. And we didn't, argue with them about their approach. We're just trying to evaluate it. And we'll put some of the argument aside for now. We still have another week to go until training camp begins for Ohio State with that Thursday practice a week from tomorrow, 9 days from now, whatever it is. Yeah. But we did learn other things.
Yeah, let's dive into those.
Let's go. Let's get into them. Bill,
it seemed like there was a lot of real college football mechanics.
Stuff. There was. But
yeah, I don't care about, it's great. We're going to ask Ryan Day what he thinks about what college football is going to look like in 5 years. Awesome. I care about this year. Brandon Innes is healthy. Lorenzo Styles sounds like it's healthy. It seems like the only guy that they're, at this point, going into camp a little bit over a week from now, that they expect to not have is TC Caffey.
He is out for the year.
He's out for the year. Which you asked about Austin, and I don't know. I guess I'll ask you what you thought of Ryan Day's response to your question about the running back depth, because there was an opportunity, I guess, for him to project a little more alarm than he did, and he seemed like he was okay with it.
I think it's in the back of his mind as a position that has to be watched. He talked about some emergency plans and backup options that they may need to pursue if it comes to that. Well, first of all, he's saying that James Peoples and Sam Williams-Dixon are going to have to play. Yes. Like that's obvious. They have 4 scholarship running backs. They thought that would be supplemented with TC Caffey. And the way that I asked the question was like, when you mentioned Caleb Downs seemingly out of the blue in June, was that because of Caleb Downs specifically or the running back depth, if it was a concern for him? And he said at the time, it was more about Caleb Downs. If it comes up again, it's clearly going to be an issue where they have to start looking at using Caleb Downs, which I think is like in some form or fashion is going to happen. I
thought he walked it back a little bit.
I felt more strongly about it.
He said the best safety in America is going to start off the season at safety.
Right. Which is like an obvious thing to say, but maybe it's not walking it back.
Then it was a conversation of Brandon Innes and Emeka Egbuka. Now those latter two are not going to, I don't think, just line up in the backfield and be running backs. He said there were a couple other guys, walk-ons that had good summers that could be in consideration for them. He said, we didn't really know what we had in TC Caffey until he got through some of that stuff after being in the program a bit as well. But in terms of like getting through week 1, 4 is plenty. I think, could this be a conversation that we have to revisit in mid-October? Maybe. You mentioned it because you asked him about what prompted a lot of this Caleb Downs stuff a month ago, Bill, was you asking about not pursuing a running back in the transfer portal. I don't know that we've seen this with Ohio State needing at least 3 running backs before, and you say, well, that's fine. They have 4. 2 of them are true freshmen. TreVeyon Henderson has had injury history. There's no debate about that. Right. Berman's made this point as well. It's a weird thing to be stressed about, but if you're talking about 16 games or 17, it has to be in the back of your mind because we're talking so much about the running game being important to Ohio State.
I truly love the fact that it is a situation where Ohio State is going to force itself to play the young guys early in the year, and they absolutely should anyway. And so now you're kind of pushed in that direction, which I'm fine with. You never want to go into things thinking, well, if these guys get hurt, then we have a problem.
Sure.
Because that's the truth about any position. Mm-hmm. Like if you lose your top 2 at any position, you've got a problem. So I don't think that it's something where you can have the mindset of, well, if TreVeyon's injury issues in the past pop back up, then, oh no, we're screwed. Like, these guys are all going to play, and there's plenty of football to go around, and kudos, let's let it rip.
But if
you're taking the over, those guys are going to get a lot of reps anyway.
I just think it could be a situation, again, maybe it doesn't happen. I hope it doesn't for Ohio State's sake, that Bill's question gets revisited.
It was a harbinger of doom.
Revisited at some point. No, that's not what I meant.
You did it.
I didn't mean it.
That they may wish, and like TC Caffey's injury happened when it happened, and it's very unfortunate primarily for TC Caffey, who I think had a great opportunity to help Ohio State in some form or fashion. He made the most of his opportunities when he got on the field, when he was healthy. But if this had happened in April, then there would absolutely be somebody else on this roster, in my opinion.
It's a shame Mine Williams isn't coming back for year 5.
He would have come back. He should sue the NCAA.
Yeah. You're going to win.
Yeah, I know, right?
NCAA can't stop you from doing anything anymore.
Bring him back.
He actually, Mayan had 2 more years of eligibility left.
I think
he was not out. You don't think he has to sue him at all?
Well, once he declared,
he went through the process.
Draft
okay.
process.
Points for you guys. Yeah. Does that matter anymore?
Nothing matters.
No, I didn't think it did. Anyway.
What do you think of the conversation about communication on the field and where the coaches are going to be?
I had not considered in the will Chip Kelly be up top or down low conversation where he needed to be so that he could talk to the quarterback. But I guess they think that he could be up top instead. It works in the NFL. Why wouldn't it work in college? So there was some conversation, I think maybe a week ago, I saw some stuff people were just saying, oh, Chip has already said he's going to be down on the field.
Bobby Carpenter mentioned that on our show.
Bobby, that's where it was. Yeah. Yes. Okay. Thank you. Ryan Day left that a little more up in the air. So we'll see. I kind of like the idea of Chip being up top and then having Ryan Day on the field. But I don't know. When's the last time Chip was in the coach's box?
Did we get any clarity on how many headsets they're going to be allowed to have? How many people can you have talking to the quarterback?
Talking to them?
Is it just 1 or 2?
I think it's 1-to-1.
Yeah, 1-to-1
You want a whole bunch of guys.
I think the head coach should be allowed no matter what. And then you have 1 more. That's how I do it. You just got to switch channels.
I don't think NFL head coaches can talk to
I think
quarterbacks
I think it's just the play callers. I think it's just the play callers.
I'm all about communication.
It's too much. You don't want all those voices in your head. You get a pretzel in your
I've
head.
been dealing with that for a long time.
Yeah,
you and Randy.
See where it's left you? You want that for Will Howard or Devin Brown?
I was not over there for Day the whole time.
You weren't?
What did he say about the quarterbacks?
He was asked by a veteran member of the beat if he had missed it, and Ryan Day had named a starting quarterback at some point during the day, and Ryan said, "No, I haven't." Bill, what did you think about his answer? I thought that he started by talking about Devin Brown and Lincoln Kienholz having an edge in understanding the playbook in spring, and then by the end of it, he started talking about someone generally becoming more vocal and a better leader.
Yeah, which I think we can all read into who that someone is. I guess in hindsight, it makes sense maybe that they have not named Will Howard the starter, because it would be a little odd to name a guy who's brand new to the offense the starter when you did have some incumbent experience, at least with the playbook. So there was some catch up that had to happen, and I think it's happened. Emeka Buka was talking about that. He said, like, Will was coming from like a very different program and a very different offense, and he kind of had to get his feet under him and like kind of figure out what this all is. And I believe that there's confidence now that he has figured that out. It seems like Will has. Not that he ever seemed uncomfortable, but if he was in any way, I don't think he is now. So I think that sort of evening up in terms of at least knowing the offense has happened. Clearly, he's more experienced. Again, that is what will win him the job, in my estimation. Whatever that is, I don't know. Ryan Day did say the 2-week thing, so we'll see. He gave us like a little bit of a roadmap where they're going to have the split field stuff for the first 4 practices that are open, and then start the pair stuff down after that.
That was the most specific.
Coincidentally, we're no longer watching practice.
A, coincidence. Who would have ever guessed? And B, the most specific he's ever been about this is what's going to happen about a quarterback pecking order at this point in camp.
Yeah.
To my recollection. I could be wrong about that, but he said by day 5, we're going to go through the first 4 practices. You can get tickets. I don't know. They might all be sold out.
There weren't that many.
There were tickets. If you have them, you'll be able to watch it. We will get to watch all 4 of those 4 practices as well. So that will be great. And then they'll take that Monday off. So what's that? August 5th?
August 5th.
And then on August 6th, he said, then we're going to have an idea of where it needs to go, and we're going to get into it. That doesn't mean it's going to be a definitive decision, but I bet at that point you will stop seeing Lincoln Kienholz, Julian Sayin, and Aaron Nolan getting equal crack at that job, and it becomes Will Howard and Devin Brown.
Yeah.
Do you think, did him laying it out that way push either of you maybe closer to where I am and thinking that he's going to name a starter earlier than he typically has?
Makes me think the way that he talked about it in those specifics today, specifics for the plan, generalities for the people, makes me think that he's already pretty close to.
Yeah, I just don't think last year's experience is something he's going to want to repeat.
Yeah.
One of our most loved topics this offseason was the day where we talked about Ohio State playing at Wrigley Field. So I asked David Braun, Northwestern's coach, like, is he worried logistically about, and he's just speaking generally said, what can you do about it? And he said that it's
they could have done anything about it. I asked people who cover Northwestern, they're like, well, it was supposed to be at Soldier Field.
And he said the idea of having 2 great programs playing in such a historic building,
who's Ohio State playing?
It is worth the issues. So,
oh my gosh,
that's it.
Just when you thought David Braun was doing something positive,
2 great programs, huh?
I mean, I don't think the guy's going to poop on his own.
That's true. 1 great program and us.
So he could have just said, we get to host a traditional powerhouse program, and we're very excited by the opportunity. You can't lump them together. They're not the same.
Right? I thought Ryan Day seemed a little excited about it.
They're one of 133 programs in college football in Division I. So
they are. From my vantage point, Northwestern's logo is not even on the wall here.
It's not. I can't see it either.
That's actually funny.
And that's how it should be.
Just the angles.
It's probably.
I know that it's probably there, but I'm going to embrace this moment where neither Bill or I or you can see the purple block in.
They're like, we're taking Big Ten Media Days out of Chicago and Northwestern. You're done.
Yeah.
Hit the bricks. Anything else that...
Bill, offensive line. It's in there. I know it.
So when Ryan Day was like on the dais here on TV on Big Ten Network, I thought he made it sound like either Carson Hinsman or Seth McLaughlin could end up at either guard or center. And then when he was doing his breakout, it sounded more like Seth McLaughlin's going to be the center and Carson Hinsman might play right guard. Mm-hmm. But I also got the sense through multiple availabilities for Day that like he seems pretty impressed with what Carson Hinsman has done this offseason. Obviously, he did mention Tegra Shabola multiple times. He mentioned Luke Montgomery. Did not mention Austin Sarabeld. I was curious.
He did last time.
Did he?
Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. I was wondering if I missed that, so I apologize.
But Tegra seemed to be at front of mind for him when
Tegra and Carson, I thought both were. Yeah. I if I had to handicap it, I would say it's probably either one of those two guys, based off what he said today.
He was when he was asked generally about the right guard position, and there was a follow-up about Carson Hinsman, he spoke pretty effusively in his praise about like he wasn't supposed to be
they
out
know
there.
They screwed him last year.
Like they know that I think they're trying not to
say it.
Luke Whippler did.
They're trying not to hold some of that against him. In Ryan Day's terminology, I don't want to mess up the quote. He said he was probably out there half a season too early, and they are impressed with the way that Carson Hinsman has responded to that. He did regress a little bit as the season progressed. That's not, I don't think, breaking news to anybody here.
Once your confidence gets destroyed, it's hard to bounce back.
But that he said that he's done everything right in March and April through those spring practices, that his summer workouts have been great. And every time that the conversation shifted to the offensive line, the first person he named was Carson Hinsman. So we like to read those tea leaves. Does it matter? No, but it happened repeatedly. So I think that there's maybe a better chance of Carson Hinsman winning that right guard spot. You and I have both, I think Berm as well, have been thinking like Tegra is right in line to be there. Not saying that today should change that in your mind or change your depth chart if you're making one at home, but it's probably a more even battle going into August 1st than maybe I thought when I got here.
Which Carson Hinsman deserves all the kudos in the world if that's the case. I mean, it is a kid who had every reason to walk out of the program in January and say, sayonara, I'm heading back to Madison. And he didn't. So I think that plays into it a little bit. Like you realize, okay, if we don't get this kid right now, then it's another spot we probably need to fill in January. So I think you want to instill that confidence, but clearly he's earned it. And the other players on the team talk about him similarly. So it's pretty telling, I think, that he is the guy whose name was always first out of Ryan Day's mouth.
I thought just like sort of general positivity about the O-line. Not that he would come here and trash them necessarily, but it's clearly front of mind for them. He was asked about it several times. It's like, we know like that's the thing that people are worrying about or wondering about, but I think to a man, they're pretty happy with how the summer went for that group. And I had, like, this is not a Ryan Day thing. I asked Jack Sawyer about Josh Simmons, and he said the list of players, this is paraphrasing, but the list of players who are like as explosive and have like as good a feet as Josh Simmons that he's faced is pretty short. Like, and Parrish Johnson's one of them. He wasn't like directly comparing the two, I don't think, but Jack Sawyer thinks Josh Simmons has a really high ceiling. I think Ryan Day thinks Josh Simmons has a really high ceiling. And I think Josh Simmons is starting to realize that he has a very high ceiling.
I told you in the summer, one of the guys on the team told me that Josh Simmons is the most athletic player on the team.
Yeah.
Which was a bit of a shock to me, considering Emeka Egbuka on the team. But
so I'm like, I'm ready to get a little reckless with some projections for Josh Simmons, I think.
I remember a guy who got pretty reckless with one 8 months ago, and you guys laughed him out of the gym.
Yeah, that was
Here's a question, not a question, but a statement. Start putting a chip down on Cody Simon as Block O?
Well, that's a nice little teaser for tomorrow's podcast daily.
That's a shock. It was a shock.
Get ready for that. You're going to hear it a couple times, and we have a lot more Ohio State insight, information, content from what we learned in Indianapolis on day one, and we're going to get to that for the rest of this week on the podcast daily. Kings of the North and Kings of Columbus also rolling along. Tons of interviews that Bill and Doug have been doing around the Big Ten. So we'll still be here.
If you're not following the Kings of the North YouTube page, now's probably a good time to do that. Every single coach that was here today sat down with Doug, correct?
Who was here today? Ryan Day sat down. Ryan Walter sat down. Greg Schiano sat down. Bert didn't come by. I don't know. Fickle might be doing it.
He still may. I mean, to this point he hasn't, but he still
David
might.
Braun was also supposed to as we record this, so we'll see.
No.
But it was nice. It was a good day.
I don't want to hear about Wrigley Field again.
Doug also sat down with Ross Bjork for like a half hour. I think the Kings of the North show that will be published sometime on Wednesday will be pretty Ohio State heavy with Ross Bjork and Ryan Day.
So that is all coming. And then we could have continued Snap Judgments brought to you by Byers Auto for probably another 3 hours because we heard so much from those three Buckeyes and Ryan Day. But we'll get to that as the week rolls along, I promise. Again, Wednesday morning, you can hear from all three of those players and Ryan Day talking with me and Berm. And then we'll have a little bit more coming on Thursday and Friday, as well as coverage continues in Indianapolis. Thanks so much for joining us. These were Snap Judgments. They are brought to you by Byers Auto. He is Bill Landis. That's Jeremy Birmingham. I'm Austin Ward. We'll talk to you again tomorrow.